Hi, this is Dustin with Dustin's Dollars. Today I'm going to be talking about Knightscope's annual shareholder meeting that they had. I think it was just yesterday. Sorry, the days run together. And I'm going to give you some of what I thought were the highlights and just a couple of my thoughts on that and sort of, go through that today. Before I begin, let me remind you that I am not a financial advisor or a financial professional of any sort. All opinions that I express in this video are mine and do not represent those of any company or any other individual. I currently hold a long position in Knightscope, so this video should be for your entertainment purposes only, because I could be wrong about everything I say in this video. You need to do your own research before making any investment decisions. So, Knightscope had their shareholder meeting presentation just yesterday. They have a recording of the non-business portion where they did the actual voting of the shares. Here you can get it on the Knightscope investor relations page. It's right there if you want to watch the whole thing for yourself. I'm going to cover what I think are some of the highlights that they went through yesterday and that tie into some things that I've spoken about in the past in my videos. So number one, they gave us a bit of some insights into how they are working to improve gross margins, or at least how they're thinking about it. What are they looking at? They mentioned improving production processes, right? Being able to reduce the cost while they're making the robots that are going to improve gross margins. They didn't give any particular insight in that other than the fifth generation K5, which I'll talk about in a moment. But we at least know that they've stated that they're focusing on that. And I think part of that really comes down to some of the robotics engineers that they have hired or are hiring, to sort of improve those processes. And some of the, as I said before in a prior video, some of the facilities managers as well, right? The production managers type things. They also talked about improving their deployment processes, and they specifically said so they can start recognizing revenue sooner. And I think this is something that we've seen where I was a little surprised sometimes where they actually even tweet out, hey, we have this robot, it's ready, it's in the box, ready to be shipped to a customer site. And then the press release for when they actually say that it's been deployed is weeks later. And I've been interested, and this is something they've talked about in the past, that even once the robot is at the Knightscope facility ready to go and they ship it out, there's still some setup that they have to do at the customer site. There's still some process there, and whatever it is that they need to do there, and then the customer actually has to be receptive and help out with some of those things. And so sometimes that can take a good chunk of time. And so they talked about being able to improve that process, and that lets them, once they ship it out, they've invested all the money in the robot, and then once they get it out the door, to actually then start being able to build the client for it sooner. So that's another place, and that should help out, right? That should help out, especially as we saw more and more robots sort of sitting in inventory, right? And I've covered that in the past, where you check their filings, you see the number of robots in inventory has really grown a lot, but the revenue recognition has not yet. And I actually think some of that is because the deployment timelines have just taken quite a while. Another one is, and I've talked about in the past as well, improving the processes for actually managing the machines that are deployed, right? They have to actually make sure all those robots are out there and still monitor them and make sure that they're still healthy. When they deploy new software updates, presumably they're checking on the health of those robots, making sure that they didn't just push something that has a new bug in that software, right? This is my bias as a software engineer coming in there. And so there's some things that they have to do. And they said, hey, we have some processes that they work when we have, dozens of robots deployed. But as we scale up to hundreds or thousands, it's not going to scale, right? So they have to automate things. And that's what they're focused on. Now, the fifth generation K5, they reiterated their prior sort of projections that they're going to ship it this year. And so that was great. They said the prototypes are complete. They're going to testing and refinement now. So, and that they are on track or on schedule to ship in 2022. So that's fantastic. They mentioned a couple of features there of having sort of new wheels and suspensions so that they can handle parking speed bumps, and the parking garages that they've got some clients that they want to that want them to cover the parking garages. And that once they're better at that, right, presumably they can go, they've got a whole wide open market for being able to lots of clients to market to and build that in the future. They also talked about having better sensors and camera placement, and didn't really give any details there. And I can't imagine that they ever will, right? That's sort of a mundane detail, but it presumably helps in giving a better service to the clients. And that's something that they've I'm sure, figured out through experience of having these robots deployed and be in the field. Then they also talk about having a better, quote, battery architecture, that's going to let them actually, the robots, be functional and running for a larger percentage of the time rather than charging. And I think they've said before that the robots have to charge for 20 minutes every 3 hours, I think they've said in the past. And so if they're improving on that, that sounds pretty good. That's going to let the robots actually be moving around and functional for folks. And maybe even as a part of that, that might increase the area that a robot or the range that a robot could patrol away from its charging station. Right, today, if it has to make sure that it can always get back to that charging station, it might be a little bit constrained, and maybe that will help in those respects. I don't know. But talking back about profits, and looking at this as an investor, they said this in the past, that they intend to cut the assembly time by over 80% with the new 5th generation K5, and so that's going to cut the assembly costs. Right, that's fantastic. And they stated something yesterday that I was looking to hear that I don't think they've stated in the past, but that is they expect a similar positive impact on service calls. And I think that's big, because when I'm reading through the lines at what are some of the contributors as to why that gross margin is negative, or really why their cost of services is so high, is another way to state it, is that I have to imagine they're spending quite a bit on servicing the robots, just because that could be a very expensive thing whenever they have to go do that. And because there's a large portion of that is kind of unexplained when you are actually looking at the current financials. And so I've speculated that I think that the service calls contribute quite a lot of their cost of services. And so if they think they're going to have a major decrease in the service calls in the future, thanks to this newer redesign of the robots, I mean, that's fantastic. It remains to be seen if the cost of the robots themselves will increase or decrease, independent of the actual time to put them together, but the components, right? Maybe they're using higher quality components. And that's something that they've touched on in the past in some discussions, but at least that'll be good. And so again, this won't have an immediate impact because they're not actually shipping these to customers until the end of 2022, I think they said, or at least they said in 2022. And since we're already halfway through, it's not going to happen imminently, I assume. But in 2023, we should be looking for that as a positive impact on their margins. All right. So then some of the other announcements. They had this mayoral challenge, and you can go read about this yourself at knightscope.com/innovate. And this was interesting. There weren't a lot of details here. It's very, very interesting, right? They're targeting to find basically a city mayor who will partner with them, but it's really not clear exactly what this means. And so it'll be interesting to see how this develops. I don't have an immediate opinion on this. It seems like something that if they can do it, it will be huge for them. But whether or not they can pull it off, whether they can find a suitable partner, we'll see. And I'm sure we'll hear more details about this in the future. And it's super, super interesting. Like I say, I'm not trying to downplay it. Just there's not enough details here to make much of any determination at this point in time. The Scout program. This is a basic referral program. You can sign up here, and they'll presumably send you some information. And if you get them a qualified lead and they end up signing a contract with Knightscope, they're going to pay out $1,000 for each referral. So that, I think, is good. I think that's good this is a good way to leverage all of the, I think it's 35,000 investors here it just says tens of thousands. So I got up on my screen. I think in the past I said, over 35,000 investors in the company. And, those are, a lot of those folks are, I'm pretty sure, still invested. In fact, if you looked at during the actual shareholder meeting, there was a link to be able to look through all of the holders of the stock. And there was like 4,000 pages, and each page, I think, listed 10 different entries. So I think right now, probably the number of stockholder, I hope I'm getting it right. Somewhere in that vicinity, there was thousands of pages. Each page, I think, had 10 entries on there. And so there's a lot of people that hold the stock. And that's a big potential loyal following that can talk to the people that they know, or find some good leads for the company. So I think that's positive, right? Because from the company's perspective, they're getting leads, and they only have to pay they only have to pay the referral if that client actually signs. And thanks to sort of the arrangement they had with Dimension Financing, if they can finance even a couple of these, they're not even putting any cash out for this, right? It's effectively no risk for Knightscope. So I think that's pretty good. The other big announcement, the K1 Hemisphere is ready. And I'm not going to cover this too much today, because I intend to cover this and sort of compare this to some other products that are out there. Because I got a comment on one of my videos from Pedro, asking me to take a look at one of AITX's products. And so I wanted to do a quick survey of some of these stationary security products, and I want to look at some other companies as well, and give my best overview of those. Sorry if I'm misattributing that. I think it was Pedro on one of my prior videos. Anyways, the announcement of the K1 Hemisphere, they teased this, I think, almost a year ago, but here it is. It's actually ready for pre-orders, and it's got a lot of their main features. Obviously, it's stationary, but it's a lot cheaper than the K1, the Tower K1, as I guess they're calling it now, and can presumably be mounted in more places. It's got 180-degree camera, and it's got, like I said, some of the common features: license plate recognition, facial recognition, broadcast announcements, intercom, etc. Right? So this is all a lot of the normal stuff. And they said their effective hourly rate is 75 cents per hour. And so that's interesting. See what that means. But another and that comes out if it was 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, that would come out to, $500, $600 a month. So this is still not something you're going to just get at home and stick on your house, unless you're willing to spend, $500+ a month for that. However, the interesting thing out of this announcement is they said something about having the ability to have 8, 16, or 24 hours shifts, and be able to customize that. And so that's super interesting if maybe some folks don't need it for a full 24 hours, if they can get a cheaper contract with Knightscope. That's very interesting. And this was the first time that I've seen a mention of what the pricing is for Knightscope Plus, and they called it out here, where they said the Knightscope Plus is an extra $2 per hour. And so that was interesting to see. So that tells me that the Knightscope Plus services, if you 24-hour coverage, comes out to about $1,500 per month. And so we can start to think about that and build that into models as we're looking at the profitability of the company, because clearly there's no hardware pieces for that. It's all it's services they provide, and I have to think that that's going to scale pretty well, because of the architecture they have with the robots that probably alert their folks that are there and watching, providing the actual Knightscope Plus service. And so I would expect them to have pretty good gross margins on that service itself, sort of as they sign more clients, at least. So anyways, that is what I viewed as the highlights. That's hopefully I did it in a little bit less time than the full meeting, and gave a bit of additional insight there for folks who have really an investor's perspective on this. But feel free to go back and watch the whole 25-minute, 26-minute roughly presentation yourself at Knightscope's investor relations page. Hi, Wakaza. Say aloha. I was actually just about to hop off, but I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to chat about here for just a minute. I probably should go within the next 5 minutes or so, but I'd be happy to hang around. Anybody else who's watching this after the fact, I'm done with all my prepared material, so I'm just going to be chatting for a minute for Wakaza and anybody else who hops on the stream. Needed to meet Kevin to watch this. Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. This was I just went through some of the highlights. I think you already commented and said you watched the shareholder meeting. I was just going through the highlights there. I don't have a whole lot. I don't have tons to add. I do have a couple thoughts, and picked out a couple bits that were, I think, interesting to me in terms of where they're focusing on being able to actually improve their gross margins. And I don't know if you have any thoughts. I know you've mentioned before you're in the I think in the public. Sorry, I'm going to get this wrong. I don't think you said public safety. I think you said public works. I'm trying to remember. Sorry, I apologize. But I didn't know if you had any thoughts on their announcement, this one with the mayoral challenge, and what that could mean. Um, oh man, there's such a lag time on this chat. I gotta figure out how to fix that. I don't think I don't think it can be fixed. Yeah, but I thought this was. I mean, I'll just start rambling while I'll let you uh, get over the lag time in this video and with the chat here. I thought it was interesting, but it lacked a lot of details. Public safety. Oh, so you were in public safety? Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on this. It's pretty interesting. It just really lacked details in terms of what they're going to do. I mean, they say they're talking about a lot of the benefits, right? And so I thought this was good. They're talking about the benefits for the mayor, where the mayor can say they're bringing jobs, high tech jobs to the city. They're going to, bring some education access, and but it's not super clear what they want to do. What exactly does this mean, right? When they're having this partnership, and maybe this is just maybe they have a super clear vision in mind, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm just hopping on. I didn't, or sticking around in case you had any comments or thoughts. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna head out. Knightscope needs to materialize what they put out. Yeah, marshalize. Sorry, I misread that. Knightscope needs to marshalize what they put out. I'm not sure. Not sure I'm following you. Sorry. I'm not sure what you mean. They need to marshalize what they put out. I don't know, maybe you could follow up on that real quick. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting for them to give a little bit more details on what does this mean, right? They say what they're going to do here to develop a comprehensive public safety and security architecture for the city. I don't, and again, maybe this is because I'm not in the industry. I don't know really what that would mean for the city. Sorry, materialize. Yeah, materialize. I agree. They put this out and there's just not enough details. Like if I was a mayor, I'd be like, well, that sounds interesting, but nothing here really gets me super excited. I think I don't know. Maybe you have some mayors out there who are happy and are willing to put out as many feelers as they can for something like this that's going to bring jobs, right? I know that's a big deal, but it's interesting to sort of think about how many jobs this is. Granted, they did say, and maybe this is another one I should have mentioned the highlights. They said they have the intention to triple the team size over the next, I think, 2 years or something. And so I think right now they're, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I want to say in the 50 or 60 employee range. And so that means they're probably going to be hiring another 100 people. And so if they hired, 50 people at this this particular center, that's a good, that's a small company, be hired there. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more. I was trying to cover the highlights today and see whatever thoughts y'all had on here. I actually have to hop off in like literally 1 minute now. I was trying to get this in just to because I didn't want to be too late. But I got to go actually have some Chipotle I got to go pick up. So I'm going to hop off unless you got any other thoughts real quick. But I do agree with what you said, that they need to materialize it. It's just not, it lacks a lot of details. So not just new contracts or renew contracts, but also manufacturing too, to keep backlogs at a minimum. Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge thing for them, right? They need to be, I understand what you're saying now. They need to materialize what they put out. They need to actually get through their backlog and, not just sign pieces of paper and get their robots out there. Absolutely. I agree 100%. That is a big deal, right? For them to be hanging around for over a year with $1 million backlog is like, come on, guys. You could, yeah. It does make you wonder, right, what the bottleneck is there. And I've speculated about that in the past, but, all right. Anyways, mahalo, Dustin. No worries. Well, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. I love it. I wish I had more time tonight. Sorry. but I'm going to hop off. And so thank you very much for watching, and